I ran across a pair of kids in Bend, Oregon that had solid black eyes. I kept telling myself that they had colored contacts in, but they were around 10 or 12. They gave me the creeps in a deep way, the kind of way that no kid has ever had the ability to do. It was at a gas station that I'd pulled over to check my map and get gas. I didn't realize how late it was until my co-pilot asked me who lets their kids run around at 2 a.m. I looked up and I saw 2 kids. They were standing in front of us, but at a distance. I agreed with him that was strange and incredibly irresponsible. As soon as the attendant finished with the gas, he went inside to gather a receipt. And that's when, suddenly, the 2 kids were directly in front of us. That's how I got a good look at them, right in front of our headlights. Just as we considered calling the police about 2 ornery, possibly missing children, they split up. Each child walked to our corresponding windows. They seemed to have no emotions, no smile or frowns, stared at us relentlessly. Before we could even ask if they needed help, they started tapping on the glass, telling us to let them in. For some reason, and I know it seems wrong because they're children, but we both agreed that something felt really off about these 2. So we locked the doors and left as quickly as we could. Screw the receipt. I swear when I looked in the rearview mirror, those 2 children were standing in the middle of the road, staring at us still. My co-pilot called to inform the gas station attendant, who advised they didn't see any children out there at all. I never drove through Bend again without the doors locked, windows up, and I never stopped while it was dark. I just think how lucky I was to be in a place where you don't have to leave your car to get gas. Maybe it doesn't make sense to anyone. How could it? But those kids, they meant harm. It almost felt like a dream. I woke up to my dog, Lucy, barking. She was upright on the bed where my husband and I were sleeping with our 22-month-old daughter, staring at our door like an unknown stranger was out there, rummaging around. I thought she was just freaking out over a house noise. We'd only had her for 3 months. She was still a puppy. It could have been anything. Our roommate, a creak from the house settling, the awning moving outside in the breeze. I wasn't too concerned initially. I decided the best bet would be to open the door and show her nothing was there. It sounds a bit silly, but it's what we do with our daughter when she gets scared, and I figured it should work with a puppy too. I opened the door, and she raced to the front door. She stood there, snarling at the door. It was an angry, violent growl, one I'd never heard her make before. I looked groggily at her and opened the baby gate blocking the doorway, planning to open the door and show her everything was okay. The second my hand reached for the deadbolt, Lucy went wild. She started barking and jumped around me, and when I touched the metal, she suddenly changed her temper. She whimpered, almost like she was afraid and backing down. As her mannerisms changed, so did mine. I wasn't calm anymore. My heart was racing and sinking at the same time. I had been flooded with a mixture of fear and dread. I looked through the peephole. I can't explain why I looked, but I did. Outside were 2 kids. One was just a smidgen shorter than me and didn't look much younger. I'm 21. She looked maybe 16 or 17. She was slender and pale. Her hair was a light shade of honey blonde, and she wore it long, about mid-back, with long, thin, blunt bangs in the front that covered most of her eyes. She wore jeans, a light wash, and a thin-looking olive-colored pullover-style hoodie. She held the hand of the small girl, who looked to be around 3 or 4, in the same style jeans and a button-down ivory cardigan. The smaller one looked at the floor shyly, but had the same shade of hair, tied back in a ponytail. She held a stuffed toy under her free arm. It was identical to one that my daughter has, as was the style of dress. Had it not been for the feeling of overwhelming dread and fear, I probably would have asked these children in, given them some tea or hot chocolate to get them out of the bitter cold. Something about them seemed off. At this point, I hadn't made any noise. I hadn't shushed the dog or grumbled, nothing. I hadn't turned on any lights. These kids had no indicators I was at the door. The older one spoke. She had a voice that was mature, confident, strong, and accentless. She held her head tilted downwards, and I couldn't see her eyes. She said, "We have to use your phone." I stood frozen in fear. How did she know I was there? She raised her head to face me directly, and that was when I saw her eyes. There was a reason I couldn't see them through her bangs before. They were all black, or midnight blue, dark purple, something very dark, otherworldly. She said, "Our mother is worried." As someone who's always been interested in creepy stories, I knew what she was the second she looked at me through the door. I enjoy these scary things, but I've never really been one to believe in these things. As a staunch atheist and skeptic, when it comes to the paranormal, I had written off many a ghost stories from friends and family members eager to tell their tale. I didn't believe it. Still, I couldn't rationalize my way out of this. I was standing with nothing but a thin wooden door between me and a black-eyed kid. There was no questioning what was right in front of me. I didn't answer her. Slowly and silently, I backed away from the door, Lucy still cowering at my ankles. She kept talking. "Just let us use your phone." I took another step back, and with that step, the tone changed. At first, she seemed polite. When I took the second step back, she became commanding, almost hostile. "We're not going to hurt you. If we wanted to do that, we would have just broken in. I'll ask again. May we come in and use your phone?" Lucy snarled at the door, and I inched backward, though something inside me seemed to be slowly pulling me back toward the door. It wasn't a physical pulling so much as a subconscious need to go back and let them in. I got to my room, covered the windows, locked the door, and sat there in the dim light of the nightlight. I heard her call me back to the door once more, and then, quiet. I don't go back to sleep that night, and I haven't slept right since. I know from reading about them that BEKs can't just come in without permission. I know they haven't hurt anyone, but I still fear I'll be the exception. When I told my husband, he said that it was just a dream. He keeps telling me to forget it. But this lingering feeling of sadness, this dread when the house is silent at night, this fear of a knock at the door, this tells me otherwise.